We ready? All right. Good evening. Leanne. No, we're ready. Oh.
Sorry. Okay.
Anyways, good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for attending our first 2025 Speaker Series program. My name is Jane Vanderhagen, and I'm just going to make a couple of announcements before I introduce our speaker. One of the things the board discussed earlier in the week was kind of a review of how 2024 went. And I have to say, I'm really proud of what the board achieved. We ended up doing 10 different speaker presentations with phenomenal speakers. We ended up also doing 14 different community events. So I want to give a huge thank you to everybody who assisted in that, who joined us, who attended. It's wonderful to have the community that we do. And so thank you. We're going to try and keep this entire momentum up in 2025. Let's see. Oh, wrong page. So sorry. Okay. This kind of leads me to others that we need to thank, and one of them is the legacy. So I know, that the Quinn isn't here and Dustin isn't here, but Anna, we want to just wish everybody at the legacy a huge thank you for letting us use this beautiful boat as a platform for us to do our presentations. We love it here, and I think others like you like it. So hopefully we're going to stay here and continue with this. But again, huge thank you. We have one event coming up in January. It's Cabrillo National Monument Whale Days. ACS will be holding we'll be having a table there. So we invite everybody to come and attend. It's a 2-day event, but there'll only be tables with people working the tables on Saturday. So again, get out there, come and see this beautiful place. Rick and several other speakers will be speaking on Saturday. I'm talking about cetaceans, marine science, conservation, the whole kit and caboodle. So again, ACS, yeah. So again, we encourage you to come out. And for those that, I can't imagine anyone in this room who doesn't like being out on the water, right? But for those that just don't want to do that, you can do the whale watching right at the top of the hill. So that's another way to enjoy our gray whales as they pass by. So hopefully we'll see you there. And please stop by and say hi. We have several different activities that we need to do this year as a board. One of them is to improve and help our social media. Another one, which is our top priority, is a brand new website. The website we have is extremely old and it's really not functioning well. So if anybody out there wants to help us out with that, we are open arms to it. Any help, any direction, any insight, any little bits of time are definitely welcome. So just ask myself or, Rick and everybody else, and we'll be happy to have you help us. All right, on to our speaker. With a master's in Marine Biodiversity and Conservation from Scripps Institution of Oceanography, our speaker began her cetology journey at a young age when her annual whale watching trips in Maui captivated Anna's imagination. Through today, where her current project, and I can't pronounce it, Kaikōura, thank you, New Zealand, examines the impact of swim tourism on dusky dolphins through boat-based surveys, photo identification, and data collection to assess dolphin behavior in response to human interaction. Her deep, unwavering commitment to understanding and protecting marine life through science, policy, and sustainable tourism practices is dedicated to advancing impactful conservation strategies for marine ecosystems worldwide through sustainable tourism and policy frameworks. Please help me welcome Anna Gierhart, who will be presenting the effectiveness of policy to reduce disturbance to dusky dolphins by swim tours.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I am so excited to share my research with you today. So originally my project was the effectiveness of policy to reduce disturbances to dusky dolphins, but since I figured I have a lot more time this evening, I've added a few other things about my research that I figured you guys would find interesting. So I'm super excited to share it with you because I haven't gotten to present that part yet. So it's been wonderful. So like they said, growing up, my family would always go to Maui for humpback whale season, and being out on the water just completely ignited my passion for the field and for marine mammals. And especially when they dunked the hydrophone in the water for the first time, it just blew my brain. It was the coolest thing I've ever seen. So I have pursued this career my whole life, and I've always wanted to do cetacean communication and work with sustainable ecotourism. So growing up in the middle of Missouri, this made this a little bit difficult at times. So anytime we could choose a topic on anything in high school and college, I would always do something with marine mammals. So there's been a wide variety of little topics I've studied in the past. But I moved to San Diego in 2018, and I went to Point Loma Nazarene University, and I graduated in 2022 with my undergrad in a Bachelor of Science in Biology. And then after I graduated from Point Loma, I did an internship at the Navy Marine Mammal program for 8 months. And then a few months after that, I started my 1-year master's program at Scripps, which was the Master of Advanced Studies in Marine Biodiversity and Conservation. It's a little bit of a mouthful, but I graduated from there in June of 2024. And it's actually a really sweet full circle moment. If it wasn't for ACS, actually, I would not have this project at all. I actually met my advisors for my capstone project at the ACS convention in November 2022. And I had just gotten back from New Zealand with a trip with my dad. And I just happened to run into Dr. Markowitz, who is in the top left of the corner. And we happened to start talking about the Dusky dolphins in Kaikōura. And he kept saying, oh man, I would love to have a student to support in Kaikōura. Like I would love to support a master's student. And I was like, that's mine. I don't know. That's gotta be mine. That is mine. I want that. I'm going to be that person. So I stayed on it for a while. And I also met Dr. Sarah Mesnick, who's at NOAA. And so she got me involved in the lab at NOAA, the dissection lab, dissecting dolphin stomachs. So in the necropsy lab. So that was great. And she told me about the MAS-MEC program. So if it wasn't for ACS, Scripps would have been different and this capstone project wouldn't have happened. And if it wasn't for Dr. Bowles being on my project and helping me with all my acoustics and taking me under her wing, I about knocked her door down trying to get the hold of her. So I'm super excited that we're working together. And yeah, I've been very, very blessed with the great committee and group of people supporting me, including my dad, who was my research assistant for my field work in March and April. So great. Yeah, there he is. He's the best. And I have really supportive parents. So I just presented this small part of my research at the Society for Marine Mammalogy conference in Perth in November. And so that's that there at the bottom. They put my face up there real big. I didn't expect that part. So that was quite a surprise. But enough about me. I'm going to take you guys to Kaikōura and kind of get you where we're going geographically. So if you look in New Zealand, Kaikōura is on the South Island. It is north of Christchurch, south of Blenheim. And so you can see they have the Kaikōura Peninsula. And so earlier in the summers and in the season, the dolphins are typically further south. So later in the season is when we'll start seeing them around this part of the coast. This is South Bay, and that's where our boats typically leave from. And so you can kind of see we don't need to watch all of it, but you can see the Kaikōura Canyon in the peninsula. And this is kind of the area that we typically will find the dolphins in for the swim, or not me, the skippers, the wonderful skippers at Dolphin Encounter. But so Kaikōura is one of the world's top destinations for marine mammal watching. And like I said, it's located on New Zealand's South Island, and its unique geography and proximity to deep sea canyons attract a diverse array of marine life. So it makes it a premier spot for marine ecotourism. So New Zealand's rich waters actually host over 51 known species of marine mammals, which represents approximately half of the world's cetacean species. So it's a good place to be if you're an ACS. The Department of Conservation implements and enforces policies to protect these marine mammals, kind of like how our NOAA does. And they strive to ensure sustainable and responsible tourism practices. So introducing the star of the show, the Dusky dolphins. If you They kind of look a lot like our Pacific white-sided dolphins that you can see here. They're both lags, but Duskies are a little bit different. They're a little smaller. They don't have that black stripe right here like the Pacific white-sided do, but they are highly sociable animals, and they are one of the smaller dolphin species, and they form groups ranging from just a few individuals to over 1,000. And in the waters off Kaikōura, the dusky dolphins actually follow the deep scattering layer migration. So this leaves their daytime free for resting, socializing, and mating, which they do a lot of. So they have their night times to typically eat in Kaikōura. So for over 30 years, like I said, Kaikōura has been a prominent hub for dolphin swim tourism and research into interactions between dolphins and tourists. So studies conducted on the dusky dolphin population in Kaikōura have provided valuable insights into the behavior, ecology, and social structure. So this is one of my favorite little characters of the research. During my fieldwork in Kaikōura, I've had the very unique opportunity, once in a lifetime, it's wonderful, to swim with the dusky dolphins. And that allows me to have more close observations to observe their behavior and individual characteristics. So if you can see, we have this one dolphin that has that one spot on the right side of its lower lip. She'll kind of flip around. I think, we'll see. Yeah. And you can see that I've had encounters with this particular individual on at least 10 different swims in my time in Kaikōura, including from March and April. And I saw the same individual this past time I was here in November and December on multiple swims. So I absolutely love this individual. I named them Lipstick because it looks like a white streak of paint on their lip. So everyone at Dolphin Encounter knows if I get out of the water and I saw Lipstick, it was a good swim. So I would say that these interactions underscore the social complexity and curious nature of these dusky dolphins and provides a foundation for understanding their communication and social dynamics. And a lot of people typically ask with the dusky dolphins, why are they so acrobatic? Some people think they're malfunctioning or something's wrong with them. I've seen a few videos about that, but there's a few theories to why they are so acrobatic and what different flips can mean. So their favorite theory is that it's fun and it just looks like fun. But there are the coordinated leaps that you can see in this video right here. And typically those are associated with mating leaps, with the female going first and the males following, and can help with sexual selection. We also have our noisy leapers, which would be like this guy right here, and they jump up and slap on their side, and it kind of serves as a shout to the pod to kind of direct traffic or be kind of like a night guard. I call it night guard because if there's a group that's kind of aimlessly moving along and you have one splashing, it's like the night guard. So, and we also have found that Versig found that in Argentina, their flips were more common after a successful feed, and Markowitz found that they flipped more frequently in the morning, which would be in Kaikōura, which would be after a feed for them since they feed at night. So the 360-degree flips, that's what they found about that, but they also look just really fun. So that is what we know about their different types of acrobatics. And another behavior that is very enjoyable to see, but not if you're a dusky dolphin, is when they get spooked by something nearby. I just wanted to share these videos because it's pretty amazing how quick they start hauling it. So you can see, I think it was a mako shark one of these days, but they can hear a lot more underwater than we can see. So maybe they're hearing a little black and white action under there and we don't know. There's also a recent paper just published about the bow riding behavior of dusky dolphins in Kaikōura that was done by Fiore, Davis, Versig, and Dara Orbach. So that's something to check out if you haven't seen that already. It's super interesting, and it's on the Duskies in Kaikōura too. So New Zealand dusky dolphins interact with a number of other marine mammals, which includes New Zealand southern right whales, common dolphins, longfin pilot whales, bottlenose dolphins, Hector's dolphins, killer whales, New Zealand fur seals, sperm whales, southern right whales, and humpback whales. And in this video, you can see the Duskies were swarming this poor juvenile humpback. And he's like, get away. I just wanted to come in and rest. We don't know that's what he's saying, but they were swarming him that day. We kind of felt bad for him. They just wanted to play. But interesting enough, with some of these pictures, I have gotten them from a big group of people in Kaikōura, have made a massive group chat of people that work for Whale Watch, for Dolphin Encounter, and for Wings Over Whales. And so they send some of these photos in. So these two pictures of the Lissodelphus and the pilot whales was last week, actually, on Christmas Day. So yeah, a lot of these are pretty recent, and they've seen everything lately, I'll tell you, right when I left. So that's how it always is. Okay, so you can see the interactions with other species. One of my favorites to see them interact with is our Hector dolphin. And so you can see one of these things is not like the other. He has a rounded Mickey Mouse shaped dorsal fin. And these Hector dolphins, if you don't know, are the smallest and rarest dolphin species, and they're endemic to New Zealand. And they are a special little character to the marine mammal story of New Zealand, I'd say. They are one of the most prized creatures there, along with the Duskies. So we have that. And then one of my nearest, dearest stories of this research project would be, if you can spot the one thing that's not like the other in this video, look for a larger gray dolphin. And this is his entourage. There he is. So introducing Dwayne to everyone. This is our adopted bottlenose dolphin, Dwayne. He has he's named after Dwayne the Rock, actually. Whale Watch actually named him Scratchy at first because he was covered in scratches so that's a really good picture of what he looked like when we first started seeing him. He was covered in rake marks. So Whale Watch named him Scratchy. Dolphin Encounter named him Dwayne after the Rock. And he always has an entourage of ladies. So we're like, it kind of works. And now he's not scratchy anymore. So this is Dwayne. We think that he's an oceanic bottlenose dolphin from what we know, but they began seeing Dwayne in autumn of 2023. And we think that he got rejected from his pod. We don't have bottlenose dolphins typically in Kaikōura, and this is the only one we see. He's become the local celebrity, and they saw them in autumn 2023, and I saw him multiple encounters in March and April, and this last visit he showed back up when I got there. So I was like, perfect. Dwayne is back, and he definitely has been socializing a lot with the Dusky. So here you can see all of his scratch and rake marks and him kind of just in with his adopted little group. It's so sweet. Sometimes they're not as sweet to him. It depends on the day. But yeah, you can see some of the Dolphin Encounter employees took that picture, and that's him trying to leap, kind of act like a Dusky. It's sweet. It's sweet. He's not as agile in the air, but he's doing his best. So yeah, Dusky dolphins are known for their social behaviors and their interactions with tour operators and tourists. And so that's me, and that was filmed by the owner of Dolphin Encounter. So it's a very cool little video. This dolphin just hung out for like 45 minutes by itself. So Encounter Kaikōura, like I've referenced, is the only company right now in Kaikōura operating swim tours to really swim with the Dusky dolphins. And the other tour companies, like I've said, are Whale Watch and Wings Over Whales. And Whale Watch primarily targets sperm whales, and Wings Over Whales has a wide range that they see stuff way far out. So they all communicate regularly with each other, and they help each other locate marine mammals off the coast. So there's always eyes on, which is awesome. But notably, I'd like to say that the dolphins do have significant control over these encounters, deciding whether to allow the boats to approach their pods and whether to engage with swimmers once they're in the water. So this control is crucial in understanding and managing the impact of tourism on their behavior and well-being. So some rules for how the operators must navigate. So they have to navigate cautiously near marine mammals, and to minimize disturbances, vessels must travel no faster than idle speed within 300 meters. No more than 3 vessels, including aircraft, are allowed within this range. And dolphins and whales should be approached from behind or the side, avoiding circling, blocking, or cutting through groups. So policy changes were implemented based on research conducted in 2007 to 2009. And this study utilized theodolite and research and tour vessels to gather comprehensive data on dolphin behavior. And some of the policy changes that they recommended was a mandatory midday rest period for the dolphins, since we know that since they're feeding at night, they have that certain rest period, especially when there's calves present. They have a limit on the number of swim drops, which is very important, and specific guidelines for tour operator approaches to make sure they're respecting the way that they're approaching. So I am updating this study to evaluate policy measures' effectiveness and impact on dolphin behavior, comparing current findings to previous research. In 2024, I conducted focal tour observations from onboard swim with dolphin tour vessels, and I documented vessel movements, speeds, dolphin behavior, pod size, swim duration, and swimmer interactions. The analysis aimed to clarify any temporal changes in dolphin behavior and their implications for dolphin welfare and tourism management. So my objectives were to measure the tour vessel's speeds and directions of approach and document dolphin responses indicated by swim drop, swim duration, group dispersion, and behavioral states across different time periods. So descriptive statistics were calculated and figures were created using Excel. Statistical comparisons were conducted across various parameters, including vessel approach speeds, swim drop duration, dolphin group dispersion, and behavioral states between different time periods. The vessel approach speeds were compared between the previous study in 2009 to the current study in 2024. The 2024 data shows a significant decrease in approach speeds, indicating a shift in human behavior towards the dolphins. This change is likely due to increased conservation practices and awareness. The percent of approaches from the rear, side, and front were also calculated. So the previous study showed a drastic decrease in the percent of approaches from the front, which ensures a decrease in aggressive approaches. And consequently, in the 2024 study, we saw an increase in the percent of approaches from the side and rear, which is the most appropriate way to approach dolphin groups. The duration of swim interactions can indicate dolphins' affinity to swimmers and tour vessels. So results indicated the average swim duration had increased in the 2024 study, which is a good sign, but it also found that swim duration typically decreased with an increased number of approaches. So this suggests that while the dolphins may initially engage longer, they ultimately control how long encounters last by deciding how long interactions last. It was kind of a mouthful. Additionally, dispersion was measured using the nearest neighbor distance, ranking from the tightest to the most spread out. So the higher the point on the graph, the more tightly bunched the dolphins were. So we compared the dolphin group dispersion to the vessel approach number from tours of the previous study to the current study. The graph shows the number of approaches with dolphins less than one body length apart. So linear regression lines were used to indicate the trends from the first to last approach. And results indicate that there's been an overall decrease in the percent of times that the dolphins were tightly bunched in the 2024 study, but there was still a slight increase in bunching with an increased number of approaches, which is why we have the good thing of the limit on the number of swim drops. So the study also aimed to assess the impact of dolphin tour vessels on dolphin activity levels, and each time a tour vessel approached within 50 meters of a dolphin group, the dolphin's behavior was observed and categorized. Behavioral states were classified from least to most active, and we compared the behavioral states of the Dusky dolphin groups interacting with the tour vessels from the previous study in green to the current study in blue. In 2024, there's a general decrease in the dolphins actively traveling compared to in 2009, and a slight increase in inactive behaviors. So I will say that's the meat and potatoes of what I just presented at SMM. Now this is kind of some fun bonus things with Dusky dolphin acoustics, which is where Dr. Bowles has been the star of the show and helping me with. And so dolphins are highly intelligent and social animals, as you all probably know, and they rely on diverse forms of communication to navigate their underwater world. So acoustics are obviously a cornerstone of dolphin communication, as sound travels much more efficiently in water than it does air. So dolphins produce three primary different types of sounds: echolocation clicks, which help them navigate and locate prey; whistles, which can be used for individual identification and social interactions; and burst pulse calls, which may signal emotional states or mediate conflicts. And while most odontocetes, including Dusky dolphins, produce all three types of sounds, not all odontocetes whistle. So non-whistling species within the harbor porpoise and finless porpoise family, and the genus that includes Hector's dolphins and Commerson dolphins. as well as sperm whales, which makes sense. So some evidence suggests that beak whales might be able to produce whistles, but they're mainly understudied, and I'm sure you could talk to that maybe more later. But yeah, dusky dolphin acoustics in particular have been the subject of limited research. I think the last time was kind of the 90s, so I'm stepping into something here. And so there's really been only a handful of peer-reviewed studies available, and foundational work was largely conducted by Yin and collaborators and Wang and colleagues, and they've absolutely offered very valuable insights into their vocalizations. These studies provided a basis for understanding the acoustic behavior of duskies, and it's very crucial to interpret their social dynamics and responses to environmental changes. So in addition to acoustic signals, dolphins can also use physical gestures and visual cues, and behaviors such as synchronized swimming, tail slaps, and breaches convey social or environmental information, while tactile communication like rubbing or gentle contact strengthens bonds within groups. So together, these communication methods demonstrate the complexity of dolphin interactions. But studying dolphin communication holistically, acoustics, body language, and tactile signals, researchers can gain deeper insights into social structures, behaviors, and how human activities may impact these fascinating animals. Understanding their communication is not only fundamental to their conservation, but it reveals how these intelligent creatures thrive in their marine environment. So I deployed a hydrophone throughout the research project to gather a little more information about dusky dolphin vocalizations. And so I will play you my first example of kind of what their echolocation sounds like. Uh-oh. How do I? It's not letting me. Sorry guys. Let's try that again.
You got our arrow on the beak now. And we can hit it.
It's kind of, it's not synced up, but that's all right. That's the spectrogram that goes with it. Yeah. Yeah, they were like, what is this thing in here? We play karaoke. So early studies such as Wang and Al examined dusky dolphin whistles in New Zealand and Argentina. And so some of their key findings were that whistles in New Zealand duskies were similar to those of bottlenose dolphin whistles, featuring stereotyped loops, and were thought to play a role in social communication. But in Argentina, whistles were rarely detected, which suggests regional differences in acoustic behavior. Later reanalysis showed that many whistles attributed to dusky dolphins in New Zealand were actually produced by common dolphins in mixed species groups, which questioned the role of whistles in dusky-only groups. Right, I know. Dwayne, there's probably some recordings in there with Dwayne, hopefully. I know that's something I'm interested in for sure. But Yin and Al further investigated the dusky dolphins during summers and falls, and they found that dusky-only groups rarely emitted whistles, while whistles were primarily recorded in mixed species groups. But whistles produced by duskies were similar with fewer loops, less repetition, and compared to sympatric species like common dolphins. Both studies concluded that whistles are not a significant component of dusky dolphin communication, particularly in New Zealand and Argentina, which aligns with other findings in other non-whistling odontocetes, which raises the question about the adaptive reasons for reduced whistle use. So we don't know enough about the whistling in dusky dolphins right now, but some delphinids are able to emit sounds with both sources simultaneously, and we don't know for sure yet, but there have been little hints and signs in some of my hydrophone recordings that could lead us to believe that this could be the case with the dusky dolphins, which would be really interesting because this is very understudied in the group Lagonaranchus in general. And so we also have burst pulses, which is my favorite little noise that they make. It sounds like they're all just in a bar having a chatty old conversation. It's like everyone's trying to talk over each other. So this is one of my favorite recordings, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about the burst pulses that we know about duskies. It's all different little dialects. Not dialects, but it just sounds like different. Sounds like a whole conversation in a bar. That's what I think it sounds like. But so previous research and observations highlight the significance of burst pulses signals in dusky dolphin communication. And although these signals were not specifically studied in detail, fieldwork experience indicates that they emit burst pulses very regularly, which I can agree with. They are doing it a lot. So burst pulse signals are broadband click trains characterized by extremely short interclick intervals and higher click production rates compared to the standard echolocation clicks. So unlike echolocation, which involves longer intervals to allow for echo processing, burst pulses are often associated with high social activity, suggesting their primary role in communication rather than navigation. So this aligns with the findings in other dolphin species such as spinner dolphins, where burst pulses are believed to convey social information during interactions, which makes sense. The shorter intervals and distinct acoustic patterns of burst pulses make them effective for rapid information change, and this further emphasizes their importance in their complex social structures of dusky dolphins. So future questions in the acoustics realm that I'm looking to answer would be, when and why do dusky dolphins vocalize more or less? Would it be if when there's swimmers in or out of the water? Would it be if other species are present? The water clarity. I also think it would be really interesting to localize some of where the sound sources are coming from to specific identified individuals. I'd really like to look more into the whistles and see if there's anything that we're not seeing quite yet. But it's definitely essential to further research on their acoustics to explore their repertoire and maybe their evolutionary drivers in their acoustics, because they're a little bit different between Argentina and New Zealand from what they've found. So after comparing the results of the current and previous studies, the data has shown differences consistent with the policy changes that suggest that this has had a positive influence on dolphin-tour interactions in New Zealand. The dolphins now appear less disturbed, and skippers are approaching them much more respectfully. So future research directions for what I'm wanting to do in the future is I'm hoping to pursue a PhD in New Zealand to continue researching the Kaikōura dusky dolphins. I've kind of fallen in love with both Kaikōura and the Duskies. They're really very special to me. So they're awesome. And I would like to keep monitoring the effects of the policy implemented. I think that would be great because it's important to maintain follow-up studies on that. And I would also like to do a lot more with the acoustics like you've seen. So there's a lot of recordings that I have going, a lot to go through. And I have a lot of behavioral data to overlay onto that to know when and why and what factors may contribute. It also has been an idea to maybe do a photo ID catalog working with Dr. Markowitz. So he was actually in the field with me like a month ago. We were both in Kaikōura after the SMM conference, and he probably got 1 million pictures. So we are going to update the photo ID catalog soon. And we also have been talking with Dennis Berman at Dolphin Encounter about maybe doing a GIS spatial analysis of dolphin movement patterns, because they record those numbers on every trip. So that would be really interesting too. There's a lot of other ideas under my hat, but they're to be further explored. So this study's success is largely due to the professional support from the Dolphin Encounter team. Their commitment to scientific research, along with sustainable tour practices and changes in skipper behavior and new guidelines, have become crucial in achieving these positive outcomes. Kaikōura sustainable tourism focuses on minimizing disturbances to marine mammals and their habitats. Through education and conservation, it provides memorable experiences while promoting long-term marine ecosystem protection, benefiting both communities and wildlife alike. And before I open up for Q&A, I would just like to say I'm very, very blessed for all the people that have supported me along the way of this project. I've learned from such influential scientists within the marine mammal field. I would like to thank my co-authors, advisors, friends and family for supporting my career and this research project. I'd like to thank ACS for having me to speak. It's such a sweet full circle moment. And I was thinking I just was here for an ACS talk this time last year with Dr. Bowles, and I never thought I'd be presenting. So that's cool. That's really cool. And it was really cool to present at SMM. That was something that I wasn't expecting. And it was just everything has worked out great. And Scripps and my MASMBC cohort has been so supportive in kind of launching me into this project in this part of my career. My research assistant, my dad, was wonderful. My mom, my family and friends, and mainly the Markowitzes, Dr. Bowles, Icha Mustica, and everyone that has been kind of holding my hand and letting me go throughout this project. I really appreciate it. And everyone at Dolphin Encounter, I would not have this project if it wasn't for them letting me come out on their boats and hang out with all of them and all the skippers. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. And I will open it up to questions so it can be more interactive.
Remind people on Zoom to chat.
Yes, yeah, for sure.
If you could just say that out loud. Just-
Hi, send
Anybody that's on
questions here.
Zoom, just enter your questions in the chat room and we'll get them asked for you.
Sweet.
There, I took care of that.
Yeah.
Questions? I'll start off.
Okay, perfect. I have questions.
Are you seeing any pushback on, I'm thinking particularly of the swim encounters by limiting them? Do they feel, is the market, they got 10 times more people that want to go swim with them and the new rules are not to do that? Or what kind of impact are you seeing on the business?
On the business side, I would say that Dolphin Encounter, especially during the high season, they have a wait list for a while. So there's a moratorium because of these policy changes. So there can't be any other tourists to swim with the Duskies in Kaikōura. So that kind of a safe haven for not allowing them to flood the animals. But I would say that they have a really good business going at Dolphin Encounter, and they have a long wait list to get on a swim. I think when I was there in November, they said that they had a wait list for like mid-January. So people book it really far in
So
advance.
they have the exclusive right to put people on the water. There's no other licenses that could be granted.
Mm-mm.
Okay,
Mm-mm.
thank you.
Yeah, no more permits for it. So Whale Watch and Dolphin Encounter are the only kind of boats, and
Perfect.
Wings Over Whales, but no one else swims with them. I mean, you can jump in the water with them if you want. You don't have to have like a permit. Like if you had a private boat, you could do that, but the only tours are Dolphin Encounter. So yeah. Yes.
How does this research help with dolphin encounters and dolphin interactions? Like, does the research that you do I don't know, allow them to monitor the dolphins' behavior better and so that they're not harming the behavior of the species?
Definitely. Yeah. I would say that being out on the water a lot with the skippers, they have a really good read on the dolphin behavior as well, since they're out there all day, every day with them. So we'll pass maybe like a few dolphin groups on the way out, and they'll see one group and they'll be like, oh, those dolphins, they're not cruisy. They're not going to be a good swim. They can kind of like pick up on things and before they approach. And so I'd say the skippers have a really good read on them on what's going to be a successful drop for them. Because I mean, if you use one of your drops, that kind of stinks if it's not like a good swim. So they are pretty careful with putting them in the water and monitoring the behavior to make sure it's like successful on a business side and for the dolphins.
Changes in acoustics depending on human interaction versus no human interaction?
That is a really good question, and that's one of my
Kind of rephrase it for the people that are on Zoom.
So one of the questions was, have I noticed a difference between the acoustics with swimmers in and out of the water or with human interactions? Is that what you're saying? Just to make sure. Yeah. That's a really good question. And that is one of my follow-up research questions for wanting to do a PhD. So I have the information right now. We just need to gather enough conclusions on if they vocalize more or less with swimmers in the water. That'd be really interesting if we did see a change. That'd be cool.
A Zoom question from Gaynell. Is there any difference in dolphin behavior when tourism was shut down during COVID?
That's a really, really good question. I'm not sure. I know that definitely affected the tours going out if they were going out at all. I know that there is a difference in dolphin behavior in the presence of tour vessels and without. So I'm sure it would be some of those normal changes, maybe like less leaping and stuff. But I'm not sure if anyone was out there doing research to specifically compare before and after COVID.
They didn't rush the boats when they.
They were like, "Oh, you're back! So excited!" I wish. There are some days where the dolphins are like waiting at the back of the boat just for people to get in. And I'm just like, it's like dogs with treats. You think
Right.
we're throwing fish out, but we're not.
During the research, like different researchers notice that they do come to you or they don't.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, people have been fired because no dolphins come to the boat.
Yeah, I know. Everyone's always nervous with getting the good swims in, but they all do a really good job. So, yeah.
Ann Gordon is asking on the chat. I would love to know what the current regulations are for swim encounters, such as how many boats can put swimmers in the water, how many swimmers can be in the water at the same time. Is there a time limit to your time in the water with the dolphins? And then she asks, have you considered in-water observations of dolphin behavior while the swimmers are in the water rather than boat-based?
Okay.
That's
Okay.
a lot.
I know. Okay, so I'm gonna take it like as a list. So for starters, there can only be 3 vessels around the dolphins, including aircraft. So that is kind of awkward because, you know, sometimes wings over whales will come in but they're really good on taking turns. So we were all fighting over Dwayne one day. And it was the time of the tour that it was the follow. So after they swim, they have this period where they just follow the dolphins around for photo session. And Dwayne showed up and Whale Watch was out there and it was about to be the midday rest period. So it was like coming on to be 11:30. And so they got on the radio and they were like, "Oh, hey, you guys can have Dwayne. We're leaving. We'll go in soon." So they work very well. So they're not typically crowded by boats. And there can be up to 16 swimmers in the water at a time. And there's not a time limit on the time in the water, just the number of swim drops. So some people will complain that they didn't get all 5 swim drops, but that's actually a good thing because it would be better if you just had 1 drop wonder, which is what we call it, and the dolphins stay with you for 45 minutes. So that's a good swim. So that I think that answers my first, how many boats, how many swimmers, is there a time limit? No time limit. In water observations, that's a really, really great point. And I have done that when I have the opportunity to swim. It's just not as regular as me being able to go on the boat, but it definitely gives you a whole different perspective when you're under the water with them than above water. Like there's so many that you can't see from above the surface. So it definitely changes your perspective. So that's a great point. And you can see a lot of the markings, like how I talked about that lipstick. You can't see a lot of identifiable markings on Duskies. I think you can only identify 1 out of 3 of their dorsal fins, which is not as simple as some of the other species. So that definitely has helped.
And then
And I
Danielle,
think, yeah.
you're on top of it, so go
I've
ahead.
been on the boat 3 times. I found the tour operators were very responsible. Dolphin encounters, awesome. No one on tours went in. I'm not gonna read it out loud. I'm gonna read it to myself first. I hate reading out loud.
She wants to go back and see Dwayne.
Oh yeah, you
That's the
should.
most important part.
Yeah, the most important part I think is that you want to go see Dwayne, and you definitely should. Just don't call him Scratchy. Just call him Dwayne. But
Is the water clear enough, going back to the idea of looking at them water-based, which
Right.
obviously is very complicated, but if you could get 30 feet down and then watch what happens when they drop,
yeah.
is the water clear enough that you could video that and see above you?
Yes.
what's
So
happening?
it depends. Like it depends on, the weather, but there are days like this was a really good, probably 10 meters plus visibility day. It was really, really clear. And then one of the skippers, who's also a photographer, this was like, he dove down and could see like, it was this kind of what you were thinking, like, Yeah.
That one question,
yeah.
if you wanted to see what happened when swimmers got in the water,
Oh,
the
yeah.
observer might
As like a
want to-
diver.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be very, very interesting. I don't think that the water clarity for things are as consistent. Like, I think that would maybe make it a little tricky because the visibility can change per drop. Like if we have to move and follow the dolphins and they move into murky water, it just
Imagine the
changes.
ocean doing it.
Yeah, I know, right? It's
Screwing 'em
crazy.
up.
I know. But so typically I'd say, I mean, the visibility is pretty good most of the time, but it's not like that usually. And I'd say you would probably need visibility like that to
Yeah.
get consistent observations and data. But yeah.
Do the swimmers touch the dolphins or do they have to keep their arms?
They're not supposed to touch the dolphins.
But if they come to you.
Yeah, but I don't think it like happens. They're so quick, and you'll see some swimmers will try to chase them and stuff, and we're like, oh, I don't know if you're gonna catch them,
Yeah.
but don't think it's gonna work. But yeah, so they're not supposed to touch them. I've never touched them. They get really close. So yes.
Have you done any recordings at night or put any autonomous recorders out to find out what they're doing during the nighttime?
No. Yeah. That I would love to do that though, maybe in the future with better resources and
Expect to
equipment.
hear a lot more echolocation and maybe less of the burst pulses and social signals.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would love to do that. I think they wrote a paper a long time ago that was about foraging at night and the acoustic. It was about them foraging at night. And I don't remember the top of my head, but it was off Kaikōura, I'm pretty sure. It's in the book somewhere. I'll find it for you. I brought my Dusky Dolphin book to reference, so I wouldn't be shorthanded. Yes.
So one of the things that seems like a obvious tool is using drones that you could fly out before the swimmers would drop,
Mm-hmm.
figure out their spatial configuration, and then see what happens when swimmers would drop. Does New Zealand like frown on flying drones? Because they're quite restrictive in some things. And I wondered if that was the case.
They're really restrictive about drones. So you have to have specific permits, and apparently Doc is not quick to go through the permits. So even when I was there, I guess someone was just flying one. They didn't know that you had to have a permit, and the Doc people came out looking for whoever was flying that permit. They are on it, like, because everyone reports it. So Whale Watch had reported it immediately. It's like they're on it. So the policy is pretty strict on that. But I'm hoping if I do start my PhD through that university, they do have drone permits. So that would be hopefully a good thing. I think that would be really, really helpful for updating the population estimate too. So I think Doc would maybe be different if you could show there's really important research and updating some of the research that needs to be done and how beneficial drones would be.
Just see,
I-
you can see through which one.
I know, right? You would think, but between all the tour operators, they have eyes everywhere. And I think the drones, especially with the wings over whales, it could interfere with.
Could you explain that?
The air
What's
traffic.
the aerial operation? Yeah, that's quite intriguing.
The aerial operation is very cool. I'll show you one of the pictures I took from it. When I was,
Flying in and
this is a sperm whale I saw from the plane. So right here, I don't know.
so
do it on-
fixed
Yeah.
aircraft.
Yes, yeah. And they basically just run like a 45-minute to an hour whale tours. So they go a lot further out. I saw the Lissos really far out, which is cool. They said we have Lissos with pilot whales, and I was like, bye dolphin encounter, I'm getting on a plane. So that was cool. So they have a wider range that they can see with that. And they're constantly communicating with dolphin encounter and whale watch too. So there's eyes on everywhere, but it's a really cool experience.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is it snorkeling equipment or is any scuba on these visits?
It's just snorkeling. It's just snorkeling. So they have wetsuits, flippers, snorkels, and stuff that they provide at Dolphin Encounter. But no, there's not diving. There is scuba in Kaikōura. It's just not specific dolphin swimming. Yeah. I've never seen dive gear on one of the Dolphin Encounter boats. I've never asked them about it either, but mainly I think it's snorkeling off the Dolphin Encounter boats. So yeah. Yes.
when we were in Kaikōura, it was probably 25 years ago now. They were gill netting, and we found a gill net that had 3 dead flags in it. And is this a protected area now? Is there still gill netting?
Yeah, and I was actually talking to one of the skippers, and I think they've put video cameras on the front of some of those vessels so that they have to, I don't know who's actually watching the surveillance, but they keeps them honest to record their catch. So it is a lot more protected, and I know that it's gotten a lot better. So it is, to answer your question, yes, it is. It's a lot more protected. And I think that having the video on the front of the boat kind of holds people to the fire to not, be dishonest about it. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting and an interesting way to go about it. I don't know who's going to sit there and watch it all, but it keeps them honest. Someone, an intern or something probably, which would have been me like last year. So I would have been happy to do it. But okay, we have another one. Having swum with humpback whales, we were advised no scuba since cetaceans communicate with bubble streams so as to not appear aggressive with our exhalations. Okay, I see. That's interesting. Yeah, that makes sense too. The humpback whale swims are very cool. I also think there's some companies that I've heard, because a lot of people at Dolphin Encounter went and did the humpback whale swims in Tonga and all of that area, that some are way better regulated than others. So if anyone's going to do a humpback whale swim, definitely do your research before. But the one thing I like about Dolphin Encounter is that a lot of researchers, I would say, in New Zealand would recommend. I met someone whose student was at, I think, University of Auckland, and she said after the conference at SMM, she went to New Zealand and she was wanting to swim with dolphins, and they run tours to swim with Hector dolphins in New Zealand, which they're very different socially. Hectors are very different. So I don't know how those go. I've never done it. And common dolphins. So, and they're not particularly human interested. They like to ride the bow, but they said there was a huge difference in the tours in French Polynesia and stuff, and that some of them, they had like 20 boats on a whale. So there's places that fly under the radar, I feel like, around the world. I also met someone at the conference that they were doing swim with dolphin tours in the Azores. They were trying to swim with Rhesus dolphins, and I don't know about that. And commons, and I don't remember what else, probably bottlenose, whatever they could find, but they said it was really not well managed. So that was interesting. Okay, we have another one. We have someone that could take us to Maria to swim with the humpbacks in the chat. It says,
And says that she takes trips.
I was there like really for the whales.
oh,
They've gone already.
Yeah, it was either early or late. I don't know.
just not at the high season. Yeah, but I'd say the research around these things is good to look at before you maybe do some of them. But yeah.
Any other quick? Oh, we got one more back in the back.
It was really fun to swim with Dwayne. And lipstick in the same swim, which was awesome. But yeah, everyone at Dolphin Encounter was saying, I want to swim with Dwayne. I want to swim with Dwayne. And the swimmers, the tourists would be in the water and they'd be like, oh, it's a dolphin.
Yeah.
And we were like, no, it's Dwayne. You get to swim with Dwayne. That's awesome. Like, you don't get it. They didn't care. They didn't even know there was a different dolphin. So we were all like, oh, we want to. And then he really has started to act like a Dusky. So he was just in with the swimmers. So that was really fun. The last time I was there, a fun experience, well, not fun, but it was kind of funny. A 20-foot thresher shark showed up during my swim in the spring. So I don't know, I guess just seeing a lot of the other species and stuff out there, because I don't see that really out here. But yeah, swimming with Dwayne was cool, and seeing orca for the first time in the wild was like awesome. But I guess once, like a week or so after I left in the March and April, the marine mammal munching orca came through, and so they were going after the Duskies, and they haven't seen that in a long time. So I was like, kind of want to see it, kind of don't. So But they had orca yesterday. They've had a lot. I think they're more frequent in the summer. So yeah. Yeah.
Jane, you wanna bring us up? Awesome, Anna.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you very much, Anna. That was outstanding. Learned a lot. Now I want to go swim with the Duskies. Anyways. Yeah, exactly. Anyways, thank you very much, everybody. That concludes this evening, and drive safely home. Thank you for attending. Oh, oops.
wait, there's a
We do have
raffle.
raffles.
But we're gonna let the Zoom people go.
Yeah.
They're not eligible.
Good night.
Bye.